But again, a clear reason for going digital is to eliminate steps again and this overlay of additional software. All right, so now you get to the bindery, okay? So this is Dave's job. It could be, your pressman's doing it, whoever else is doing it. It could be all hands on deck if it's a big job. And so they're going to cut it, collate, fold, stitch, fulfill, ship, and then tell people that it's done somehow, okay? The products are kind of manual products, and then you probably have UPS or something like that that's managing your shipping, okay? Again, how do you feed from UPS back into the accounting system?
I have a question. On the finishing bindery, look, we have a problem is when we digitally print it, right?
Right.
Copier. Whenever you fold it, a lot of times it's cracked. So any solution? Like
You have to score it.
Score it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can we avoid that?
We've got a graphic with a store and crease machine down in the warehouse. Every digital piece that we fold is ran through there, and it prevents the crack.
And then also design it so you aren't on a heavy solid on the fold.
But
And if the paper
most of your
grain
files
correction's
come
done
in.
right.
Yeah.
That is always a problem.
Creaser will take out 99% of your problem.
Yeah, that's probably true.
If you have a smaller size creaser also using tabletop. Somebody.
Okay, that's actually a good example of I fix one problem, create another one. Because I fixed that problem, but now I have a separate step. Okay, so again, we tend to say, oh, I can get a creaser for whatever that costs. What did it cost you?
I don't know, 10, 15.
Okay, so that seems reasonable if I keep getting customer complaints on, but then now that's a standalone. Like it's got to move from one place to that and then move off of it. And
But if you fold coming straight off the copier, you've got the quality problem.
I completely agree. But this is why there's all these now inline or nearline finishing options is to take away the step.
Well, one reason we keep separate the digital and the finishing is there's a very short lifespan on digital equipment. If you buy folders, staplers, all the whiz-bang things over there, 3 to 5 years, you throw in the trash can.
Okay.
You go buy a nice folder, you go buy a nice creaser and booklet maker, you keep them for many, many years.
Right.
So when you do it in line, you're tremendous investment going in the trash can. You're just continually buying that equipment over and
If you're
over.
not using a lot of new machines, you can trade stuff what we do, buy the same machine. The finishing-
That will take the finishing equipment. Okay, so one way to do it. The other thing is you got to look at, and this may just not work in every shop, but at some point everybody has this. I didn't invest in the money. I have this standalone thing, and we used to tell ourselves, oh, that's great because I can use it with offset, I can use it with digital, everything is great. But now I need a person who spends X amount of time moving things from one thing to the other. If I didn't have that person, would I have the money to invest in the inline or nearline solution? So that's what ends up happening. Like, we want to spend $15,000 and have it, and then we end up creating another problem that we then live with for 20 years. So sometimes, if you do the analysis, it makes more sense to put that inline or nearline. Does everybody know the difference between inline and nearline? It doesn't just mean it's sitting next to. It's basically able to read like a JDF job ticket, so you're not reprogramming the instructions. It'll come off one digital print device and go into an offline. It's another solution, but it's reading the same barcode and it sets itself up. So it's halfway. It's almost as good as being in line. Okay? So the point is that I want you to start thinking about, we are saying, I can't afford that. Or, oh, wow, I could get that offline thing for $5,000. Yippee, that would be great. And now I basically am locked into someone manning that, or at least a part of my day manning that. And that costs money.
But if you're not 100% digital, you still have to equip the shop. You've got to have that offline finishing for offset printing.
True.
But once you start, you can do
And I'm not saying any of these things are the actual solution, but when you step back and look at your whole workflow, what ends up happening is I've got that situation there, and I've got a situation where we manually go through another piece of software before we get to pre-flight so that the pre-flight software can do it. Like we start having all these crazy little fixes that are making everything more complicated and meaning we got to keep the people. Okay, so, and if you have a million of these little crazy people, or crazy fixes, then you have more people, and that's costly. So the point is from this exercise is try to step back from that a little bit and see how many of those crazy little fixes you have, and maybe we now have a priority to get rid of the crazy little fixes. So what you've got is a pressman that can't do anything digitally, so therefore now you have a paper process that bogs down everyone else. You have to go hunting for job jackets, you don't know where things are, you can't give the customer an answer, you have to call them back. All that's like work on you, okay? All right, so here's just a little bit on the offset finishing. Your options are, you really don't have any offset finishing inline, so to speak, but you have some options on inline, nearline, or offline options, which is what you're saying. Like I can use it both places because it's offline. And these are all the kinds of things that they potentially fix. All right, so now we're to integrated and automated logic. So ideally, customer says, I want this electronically over the internet. You know you have it. It's in your workflow. You have now a job that's created. You don't have a separate step in accounting. And then it flows through the plant. Everybody knows where everything is as it comes through. And then you could bill at the end. So the perfect world is it's all connected. Is that going to happen? No. Now it does. In 9.1% of all the print that's happening, it is all connected. Remember that's, or 8.1 or 9.1 people said that it's fully automated. But then 90% is some level of unautomation to major levels of automation. So basically when we studied this and we said on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your current level of workflow automation in the following areas? Now we didn't say linking it all together, we just said in these pockets. Okay, so people felt like administratively they had a 5.7. We're pretty more than halfway automated administratively. Printing, somewhere in the ballpark, and that went all the way down to 4.9. Does that make sense? And when you do it that way, you end up with something like this. So you have pockets where it's pretty good, and then you actually create a bigger problem because now in between the pockets, all hell breaks loose. Does that make sense? So it's
That's real world.
yeah, exactly. And then what we see is I have a huge problem in order entry. It's a disaster, so I fix that. And then I'm happy for a while, so I don't worry about the rest of it. And then we sail along, for a really long time with none of the rest of it fixed. So it's kind of like put the fire out. Whereas really, and hopefully the output of today's exercise is, I need to fix this, I need to fix this, I need to fix this, and this is the order that I'm going to fix them in. So you have a bigger plan. Does that make sense? Okay. Because ideally you want something like this, where it's seamless. So, but there's no way you're going to ever fix that in one fell swoop. Okay? All right, so in summary, knowing the people, processes, and products involved in the production cycle helps you understand, what's going on and where the pain points are. And then once you understand that, you can start to consider, well, if I fix that, what's it going to get me? How much time am I going to save? Am I going to get rid of a person? Are we going to make less mistakes? Is it going to allow us to produce this product more cheaply and therefore make more money if I sell it at the price I've been selling it at? Does that make sense, Christina? Okay. All right, so now you got to look at your workflow. So what I did was, I don't know if you guys know this, but InfoTrends will actually come into your shop and do this for you. Okay, so what?
You would be appalled.
No. So I don't do it. But I have the customer, and then the customer needs this, and so then the person who goes in is this guy by the name of Ryan Maccabee, and he actually does this via the phone. Like he physically doesn't go there. So we took a shop that we just worked with recently, who's very similar to what you guys probably look like. okay? So this was their workflow in steps, okay? So customer communicates some way, they do an estimate, then they do a quote letter, then they convert the estimate to an order, then they print a job ticket, then it goes into desktop publishing instructions, it schedules the order via work in progress report, then they cut a manual purchase order, then they order materials, then they open the artwork and export it to a PDF, then they pre-flight it in PDF because their pre-flight tool is a PDF tool, then they correct it, then they impose it, then they proof it, big gap there, has to go back out to the customer, then they actually produce it, bind it, ship it, then it goes into accounts receivable, and then it goes into, it invoices the customer, okay? That's it, okay. So when you map that out in process, all those little squiggles are what? It's time, but all those little squiggles are manual. Okay, so every time you see a squiggle, someone got up and moved.
They need the exercise.
Uh-huh. Okay. So that's what it looked like. Now, when I set up the first meeting, I listened to the workflow, then Ryan mapped out the workflow, then we got back on the phone with the customer. And the thing I heard in that discussion was, and the bills pile up on my desk, and I do them once a month. And I'm thinking, crap, like your cash flow is going to be screwed up. So I was like, we got to fix that. Okay, so, but that wasn't the biggest problem. Okay, so keep on going. Okay, so the biggest problem was in that pre-press. Okay, and that poor, the print shop owner has a great person there in that role, and she was doing all these manual steps to work with all these problems with the software that she had, and it was just creating, you know, just mega nightmare. And she's like, you know how everybody has like a computer guy? Like there's all this other stuff she could be doing because she has the skill set to set up the web to print sites and do stuff like that, but she can't, because she's wandering back and forth in this quagmire of proofing and color correction and imposition in all these gazillions of steps, okay? So basically the current process and the typical areas of improvement were, they were estimating with a manual reference check to an external spreadsheet. Because why? Because the owner never updated the information in the system. Anybody in that boat? Okay, which means now what? Who else knows all the stuff that's in the owner's head?
Nobody, and it's potentially really not right.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good point. So basically now he's the only one that can do it because it's in his head. Okay, so what happens if he decides to go to an all-day training like this? Stuff's all piling up, no jobs are going in the system, nothing's getting estimated, no customers are getting a price.
But most people now are on some kind of IT Sprint Smith or somebody.
He was, okay, but there was all this stuff that happens. Paper prices change, you get a new piece of equipment. He wasn't going back and fixing it in the system. He was keeping it all in his head. He was going to do it. I'm always going to do it. He just never got to it. Okay, so now only person who could estimate was him. Okay, and I know years ago he had a salesperson, and the salesperson's biggest complaint was, I go out, I get somebody who's interested in something, and I say, oh, I need an estimate on this, and it takes 2.5 days to get it. Why? Because he's doing all this other stuff. Okay, so basically current processes typically look like that, and then if you can automate, then you're instead of a manual estimate and you're referencing spreadsheets or little slips of paper on your desk, you have a MIS with an adjustable markup and scenarios. You can estimate more quickly. You can automate the job ticketing, so you're not writing. Anybody writing up job jackets? Okay, so another whole step. Okay, you can do batch POs rather than individual POs. You can track and billable corrections and charge for them, which half the time now you probably don't know how many times you've gone back and forth with somebody, right? Okay, so there's lots of ways. Automatic conversion of files for pre-flighting, automatic comment corrections for color, template-driven imposition, and they can consolidate to one workflow in a single rip. Okay? All right, so now what I want you to do is, you don't have to fill out every box, I just gave you a bunch of boxes. Because I don't know how many steps it is. I want you to map out your workflow. So start with customer brings you a job, whether they
email it or walk in with it or.
right. If it's exactly like the other one, but look for places where you might have yet another step, or you're better than this guy, and you have a step that's consolidated. And you, as I said, you don't have to fill in every box, because you may have a better process than the next person. So you can look back at what he was doing and see if you do the exact same thing or you have a better process or a worse process. Jared doesn't think he's ever going to drop his phone, huh? Because you don't have the big, like, you're not going to drop your phone. Like I have the big, like it could be run over by a truck and still be okay. Oh yeah, that one's good? Okay.
It's the tough armor.
Ooh, I like that.
There's the heavy duty armor.
Heavy duty, that's what I have.
There's like 3 or 4 different models of that.
I drop my phone like 12 times a day. The thing about coming here is it's not like a trip to the diet farm.
No.
It is a 3-letter word farm.
Yeah, seriously. I always eat so much because it's so good.
Did they do the tofu?
Tofu?
The cookies are tofu cookies. Hey, we know how to keep the cookies for ourselves.
How well, for my salespeople, like, is this making sense? Like, do you know all the steps that they're going through that's beyond what? Okay, good. Well, I mean, sometimes you have salespeople that don't really get it, and so it's a nice exercise for them to understand exactly what has to happen.
No, what sometimes happens is a salesperson is pulled into the production area to make the job happen.
Yeah, that's another.
They are selling.
That's actually another big problem. You're exactly right.
It's just like click like and that's a new job. So I make a wife and it goes to Michelle. And I told her, well, she cooks it for me. She makes it for me. There's the there's the supplies and
I'm going to give you a job in a second to use your color-coded pens there, Jen. I'm going to give you a job to use your color-coded pens in a second.
Okay. 3 different colors.
Okay, that's exactly how many I need. 4, okay. Tell me when you're done, so I have some idea. Is anybody done? Okay, now I want you to consider what happens if after you bill the customer they call back and say, I think you charged me too much. Where's that step? Okay, you're finished now. Bill goes out, customer calls back and says, I don't think this is right. Then what happens? Okay.
Yeah, if they approved the estimate, do what they're supposed to, what's the question?
Okay, but what if they're like, you know, I thought it wouldn't cost this, or...
Approved it, you approved the estimate.
Okay, so where's the estimate?
That's the same thing you did, you took the estimate.
Okay, but where, physically, when that phone rings and they say, I don't understand why you billed me this.
Click, click, click there.
Okay,
Well, in fact, we have an additional step.
That's okay.
We have an order confirmation in this process after it's converted to an order, and we send a confirmation to the customer. But, yeah.
Because you made a mistake somewhere along the line, and they said,
Dave buzzed us, said you better do it.
oh, okay, all
But,
right.
I mean, it
And
has
do they
solved.
sign off on that, or what? Or you
They just get an email from our MIS system that we have, obviously we have to,
No, it's just you have the job.
Okay.
make it, create a PDF and send it to him. It says, this is your job, this is what it will cost, your invoice will be created from this, blah. If there's anything about these specifications now that is not correct, that's when they start catching quantities or, some kind of something that they thought they said or got changed between the time they approved the job and now their job,
Okay,
What we've done, not all the time, not really, but what I've done, because I have vendors that do this to me, is when we get to the point where the auditor's ready to go, we send them in.
Oh, no, we don't.
You send an invoice before we start. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't mean we're not gonna start, but we send them an invoice. That way they know, because that gets their attention. They take,
Well, this job confirmation does too, because it has money on it.
so is that do you then send another invoice, or is that the invoice?
In Brent Smith,
Okay.
we send the final invoice.
Okay,
in Brent Smith, the working document that goes through production, as you're doing production, is an invoice.
okay,
It's after, you give them an estimate, and then when it goes into production, you convert it to an actual invoice. And as it goes through production, you can still make changes, you can still update it, you can still fix it. You
Frank
know.
was the same way.
okay, so what happens if you get all the way to proof and it doesn't look right?
We change.
Okay, so where does it go back to?
The customer has to sign off on it.
Okay, so did we come back through that whole path?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so anybody have a step that you have one that wasn't on the original? Anybody? Okay, so that was pretty ideal. Okay. Okay, so now I want you to circle everything you physically do. Okay, and Sparkle. Do yours in one color, Dave's in another.
Now,
I do all my hands.
Okay,
Is it-
circle
are you
everything you do, and then circle everything he does.
Are you saying everything we do, only us does it? or
Yeah. Like this graph,
Or
everything in
do
red,
everything?
everything in red the owner did,
Exclusively.
exclusively.
Okay.
Okay? So,
I do bindery, so mine's easy to fill up.
okay. No, but I mean, I'm serious. Go back and circle everything you physically do.
On this, on yours?
On yours, the new one that you did. I'm just saying, this is on the guys that we did for him, all the red was stuff he did.
So the workshop activity should have included in getting the check and posting the payment too, shouldn't it? That's all I did.
Yeah.
Okay, put it in there. Did you put it in there, in your workflow? Okay. I don't have that. Now they're fighting over circles. Do you guys, are you following this back there? Okay.
I can easily say I do all of these. She's saying exclusively.
Let's say, only you,
I don't open the file, I don't write the file, I don't make the changes. I know that is one of the things I report.
if you do it and somebody else can too, that's still circled because you're spending some time doing
Spending
it.
time doing it, circle it.
Yeah. If you spend time during your day doing that option, circle it.
But estimating, I do.
Oh, good God. Do you have any other people working there?
There's only 3 of them in the shop.
What do you have?
Well, I can do.
If you do it. Okay, if
I do
you,
not.
okay.
I generally, I'm down here in AR,
Okay.
public payments, I'm like Jerry, but I don't do any of it.
Okay, is there a red person at your business? Who is it?
Production manager.
Okay.
Now, and the estimating is the only place in this that I would potentially get,
Okay, so you're like a half a circle here.
or a quarter, yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, so how are you doing?
I'm easy because
I'm
I do
easy.
the graphic designs.
Okay, so you don't do anything, you don't have to go hunting for anything?
Set up, well, paper, because they're supposed to pull the paper for me, but they don't.
Okay, so did you put pulling the paper as a job step? Okay, it needs to be in there. Okay, how are you doing over there? Okay, so how did you end up? You don't do any of it? So we all want his job. Okay, good. So is there a person that's the red person?
There are other people that touch it, but
Okay. Is there a person in your shop that would have been that red person who's doing most of it?
I have CSR that does quotes, I have a salesman that does quotes, and CSR that does order entry, and
Do you have any other color pens?
Arson.
No, I don't really share.
Okay, because I mean, you should look at that and say, those people, since it's not you, you're actually running your business instead of working in your business, like look and see what, like take that production manager, which of those circles or those boxes are his, if it's the CSR, which are hers, because if it tilts to too much on one person, then you have a bottleneck. Okay, so it might be nice to look at that and just see. Okay, so where's the bottleneck? In pre-press, in position, stuff like that?
Well, because she opens the file, she corrects the file, she makes the changes. She sends the proof.
She's supposed to do that.
It's a little time.
Okay, that's okay. How'd you make it? Okay.
She's not really bottleneck, but she's showing what there's a count.
Okay, so that's actually not a bottleneck unless there's a problem. Okay, so that's okay. What do you look like?
I do mostly.
Okay, so the part in the middle somebody else is doing? Okay, so that's a lot still. Okay. You do about half. What does he do? The other half. So you're split evenly. Is there anybody else working there?
Yeah, we have we do a lot of where people walk in, package ship, like FedEx, UPS.
Okay. Okay.
Some counter
People that do that. Okay.
stay back in production.
Okay. Okay, so basically the more of that you do, the worse it's going to, you're going to have issues.
During this job flow, you get interrupted with another job that all of a sudden has to be more important than the job that's flowing right now.
Yep. There's a statistic that says, I think this is right, we can Google it later. Every time you get interrupted, it takes you 45 minutes to get back to where you were when the interruption happened. Yeah. Okay, so now you guys, most of you ended up with a whole lot of responsibility. A few did not. Okay, so we're back to that, wearing many hats thing. Except everybody needs to bottle their business after you. Okay, so now I want you to think about, the key players, okay? So it's going to be you and your brother. You guys, whoever was filling those things in between what you did on the front end and on the back end. Now I want you to look back at those things, okay, and think about how much time a day you spend in those functions, and just write that on top, and then you collectively, how much time says if the pressman running, how many hours a day is that press running? How many hours a day is that CSR, doing this function, and this one, split that up. How much is order entry? How much is order tracking? How much is whatever? Okay, so you're not going to be exact on this because we're not sitting in our shop studying it, but I want you to kind of get a handle on, God, we spent 3 hours doing that. Okay, we spend, that's a lot, okay? So just go back and over top of the bucket, and you can still do that because you have that same workflow, only other people are doing things. But how much is that CSR spending on order entry? How much are they spending on order tracking? How much are they spending on, is the production manager spent on scheduling versus running something versus working in the bindery? Just tabulate those hours. And it'll be rough. What? Okay, well, so you have to go back over there and write that when it goes into mailing in that workflow, how much time you spend.
one job takes 3 days.
Okay. Well, then try to think of that in terms of, I have 4 jobs like that, so over, a course of a month, it's X divided by 21. Like, try to get to some daily amount. Is everybody following me? Okay. Okay, so just estimate, let's see your workflow. All right, so first thing is talking to the customer. Who does that?
Me.
Okay, how much of the day do you actually talk to customers?
4 hours a day.
Okay, so half the day. So mark 50%.
On here?
Yep.
Let's see.
Okay, so then where's the next thing you do?
I estimate.
Okay, how much of the time do you spend doing that?
Depends on how long I have to wait for somebody to help me because the pricing is rising.
Okay, how long does that take? So just estimate. Okay.
Because it's not every job.
Okay, so then you go over here to what? Convert to an order, is that writing it up or doing a push button?
Push button.
Okay, how much time does that take? Christina, you okay? Is this making sense? So just write, oh, look at you. You're like our star person. Okay, so pretty much this should fill your day.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Now everybody done with that? Total, like basically? All right, so now what do we know about run links? We did that in all in the marketing certification stuff. What do we know about average run links? Okay, thank you. Jay was paying attention. Okay, so people are doing smaller jobs because they want to make them more relevant. They don't want the shelf life, whatever. So what did that create?
More jobs.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, so now I want you, once you get that hour, okay, I'm spending 5 hours doing that to process, remember how many jobs you started with a day, 20, 25? Now what happens when you increase the number of jobs? Because over time, you're going to do more smaller jobs as opposed to more bigger jobs. Okay, so if it's taking you 4 hours today to do 20 jobs, what are you going to do when it's 30 jobs?
I get there at 7.
Okay, I don't know, like just, that's what I want you to think about. Like we might be holding this thing together today, but what happens if I go from 5 to 10 to 15% increases in the number of jobs coming through here? Okay, well, then people are expensive, but you might have to do that. That's where you guys are sitting. I can't do any more, so I can't take any more business. Okay? What? Okay, is that what we want? No. Okay, so if you start calculating this, you're going to be like, well, I'm doing all of it for the jobs that we have today, and now the number of jobs has increased. None of this work is different by job. Like, you still have to order entry it. You still have to do an estimate. You still have to create a bill. Like, you still have to do that whether it's a $20 job or a $2,000 job or a $20,000 job. So what's going to happen?
Take more $20,000 jobs and less than $10.
Okay, that is a way to fix that. That is absolutely a way to fix that. Is it going to be easy? No. That is a way to fix it, though. Okay? So, like, for you back there with the walk-in traffic, that's why a lot of these people said, oh, the hell with the walk-in. Because I spent so much time dealing with Jane and Ann Hilda that I can't take care of the $20,000
Maybe you
guy.
should change the price on the walk-in traffic versus somebody
That's a conceivable fix, but you can't change it enough.
Yeah, but you can hire somebody to roll the face.
You could, but you're not going to get it, so...
And then
You could hire
you
them
can stay with the bigger.
do an entry-level person at the front counter making the onesie-twosie copies
Where you're doing the bigger job.
where you could walk away and do the $20,000 job and get it done right.
Okay, that's a conceivable thing you could do. And you could do like 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in, like they're not there all 8 hours, so I don't have to pay. I mean, you could figure out a way to do that. Okay, or what could you do?
Not take
Automated.
Okay, that is definitely a thing. But I'm saying your sweet spot, you're not like Ara Donnelly and I can take a $10 job or a $100,000 job. Your mix is a lot more, varied within a smaller window. Okay? So you can say I'm not going to do those jobs, and I'm fine with that, okay? But you still are going to increase the number of jobs you do. Unless you do what he said, which is I don't want the little stuff at all. Which is probably not realistic.
To me.
Well, not the little stuff at all, but when you
entire workflow each morning, you know what you can and can't take, what you have going on that day that's
But
gonna
that
take how
gets
many
changed
times.
as the day progresses.
So what's a way to fix all of this nonsense with the little jobs that we can't help but get? Just tell me. Just tell me. Adam's going to tell you tomorrow. So if I have them coming in electronically and dropping in a file at the press, and all the pressman has to do is wander by every now and then and push a button, like that process would go away. So I could do more of it
I don't think
because it
that
wouldn't be manual.
But then whenever, if you automate, if that were the.
It's not fully automated. It's just automating the order entry component.
You ever push the button next to the print?
Yeah.
You gotta look at it, make sure it's right.
Yeah, you still. Do I always have to look at it and make sure it's right?
Yes.
That's because you know why? That's because you're not automated. If it is a template on the system with the file set up that is going to come off pre-set up, it is going to be right.
No, it's not.
The artwork's not going to print out.
No, it is not.
It's not their work anymore.
In theory, it works out really well.
It's not their work. The template is set up by you. It is correct now. They have signed off on it. And all they're doing is ordering more of it.
But
The
then
file is the
press
file.
screen, you still have to look at it.
Yeah, you look at it, but not like you have to look at it today. I'm not imposing it. I'm not color matching. I'm not, all that. I'm looking at the press and going, crap, once. Yeah, but it's not going to happen. Go ahead, Adam.
How many people have used, gone to Walmart and used the thing where you put your thumb drive in the machine and you print your own pictures? Did you hear? The answer was yes. That means your customers can come put their thumb drive in a forward-facing computer, bring up a My Order Desk, send a job file through, they choose their file from the thumb drive, they click on send, and the computer that you look at has their file ready to go with all their information. They just told you, I want you to print this file.
So there's no writing of job jackets. There's no estimating. There's no. Because it's all pre-done.
So okay, same scenario kind of, somebody comes in with their thumb drive, hands it to my graphics person, and says, I want you to print this file.
That's correct. That's going to kill your productivity. That's.
But even if they've already had it set up, they're saying it's all set up, print ready, you plug it in, she sends it to the printer, and it looks like shit. It prints out.
That's going to happen every now and then, but then you have another problem. Okay, so that's another problem. Like either your equipment is crappy, or your front end is crappy,
Or the person set it up correctly.
or the person who is not doing a good job.
99% of the time.
Okay, but then we have a skill set issue, don't we?
And I can't train these idiots.
You hire someone else.
No, it's not. I'm talking about the customer.
Oh.
Walked in and stuck his finger in
Okay, the problem with the customer is that we've allowed them to do this craziness. You fix that problem, okay?
It's all about education.
Yeah, so if you say, here's your business, if I build a web to print out, here's your business card, here's your letterhead, here's your sales collateral, you're just going to say, I want 200, go. That should print on the end of the press like you put it in.
There's no difference in that than the person that walks up to the front counter and says, make me 10 copies of this. You walk over and make a sample copy because they say, oh, I'd not like to see a copy first.
Yeah.
Walk back to the counter and they say, could you make it a little darker?
Okay, you know what this is? I just thought of something. I just thought of something. Remember we used the deluxe car wash and the regular car wash process? This is hand washing. That person, if you want somebody to hand wax your car, wash and white, how much is that going to cost? Like a lot more.
And that's what we were talking about.
Then if that person wants to do that,
Those 80% of the people that walk in on that front door, that's what they're doing.
do you want that business?
No.
Okay. So, if you wanted that business like maybe they do, then you have just to charge for that. If you were going to, because the car is getting hand washed and waxed.
But you say, do I want that business? And I said, no. I'm going to put a big but on this. I'll tell you why. We probably hadn't been in business a year. And I got a call to go and meet with a customer who turned out to be a large customer. And when I walked in his office and we sat down, we talked a while, I asked him, I said, I'm just curious why you gave your call. He said, well, it's simple. My wife was in your store 3 days ago, and the lady at the front counter was so nice to her and helped her recreate this document that she was doing for her charity. And I was bitching at the kitchen table one night about, I couldn't get my printer to do so-and-so and so-and-so, and she said, you need to call her.
Okay,
Then
so
those
we're,
copies can't be 10 cents a piece.
well, yeah, that's a good point, but the other thing I would argue, that's an aberration. Okay, so basically you are running your entire business about one odd thing that happened. And you have taken on millions of pain in the neck customers and made far less than you should have made because one time somebody had something good happen. Well, but you got to think, if that's not happening regularly, you've lost way more money than you made on that guy.
Well, in some cases, it probably.
Sometimes we have to let.
So that's the thing, like you're not managing reality, you're managing that exception. Okay? And I'm okay with that. Like, I mean, I'm kind of a, you help out, you do, it's kind of my philosophy, but you better be checking that. Okay? So you better be able to say, we once helped customer A and they're now doing $40,000 a year with us. And if you can't see that, it's probably not happening. And then you're basically giving everyone the deluxe car wash, charging regular car wash prices, and slowly going out of business.
And that happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, now you multiply that by 5%, 10%, 15% more jobs. You're either working 18 hours a day or something else bad is happening.
The world we live in, if we get imperfect files, I just all the, every day. That's the world we live in. We don't, a lot of the files that come in are not from professionals. And that is our customer. Now, we just tell them to fly a kite, close the doors.
I would look at their process. Is that a file that can be fixed? Like if they're sitting there once a year doing a newsletter for their, not bowling league, okay, you probably can't fix that, okay? But if this is somebody who's like, I'm a vet and we send out flyers to our customers reminding them that there's, a spring special or whatever, and they're doing it themselves, it's costing you money to do it. I would go sit down with them and say, hey, there's a better way. We'll build you a template. You drop in, hey, 15% off, dog sitting, or 15% off baths this month, or 15% off whatever heck you want, and that file is that file till the cows come home. And it's going to print that way. So you can fix some of that. Some of it you can't, the bowling league thing can't fix. But you could fix all the businesses that are basically like, oh God, do something, and they run and try to do it in Publisher. Because now they need to be educated about this is how much more your printing's costing because of that. Let us fix this problem. Yeah.
No, I mean.
If you consider what they're doing.
Cards that are coming in on my order desk, or I have a business card she gives me and I've got to change the name and the cell number.
Right.
Why didn't they change it?
Well, because they're not in my order desk. I'm saying I have two separate.
Right, okay.
Do we charge the one that's my order desk less money because they don't have to go through?
No, because they have a better process. You charge the other guy more. But why isn't the other guy on my order desk?
But don't you make more money by saying you gotta go through the pre-test?
But it costs you more. That's the point of all this. You are charging them more, but it's costing you 3 times more.
You're the one that's setting it up. You're the one that's setting it up. You're the one that.
That's my job, I like it.
I know, but wouldn't you rather do something besides a business card?
They have never, I've never seen.
Okay, but the point is, if you fix the business cards, you could do brochures and sales collateral and calendars and beautiful stuff that we like to have fun with. Because you wouldn't be like changing the last 4 digits of a phone number. So that's why I'm like, look at the process on that. And if you fix that, you get more time. There's no way you're charging enough for you to do that.
That's a fact.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Adam.
When the gray shirt guy Adam was up talking, just tell him, no, that's not right.
Okay, Adam, go ahead.
I was just saying that never in the last 15 years have I seen Weapon Print be so successful that they started firing people because it's just fixed everything. It's not that.
It's not, yeah.
Switch your graphic designer into building out the portals in my order desk rather than spending time changing.
All those things that you wish you had time to do, that's what it allows.
That's the magic. If I had time, I'd figure out why we have a bottleneck in pre-press, but I don't have any time because I'm writing up job tickets.
Changing cell phone numbers.
Right? And if I got rid of that, then I'd have time to figure out the other stuff. which was time to lead, time to figure out strategy. Does that make sense? Okay, we got to keep going or we're never going to finish this. Okay, so I mean,
There you go.
okay.
Sure is young.
Those are her sisters.
What?
Those are your sisters?
Those are sisters.
Yeah.
You're gonna take that off, aren't you?
Okay. I think right now I'm going to go out of order. I just thought of this. We're going to come back to the selling stuff. We're going to jump ahead to what would have been the fourth module, which is MIS.
What are we going to?
4, and then we're going to come back for 3 because that'll be a big finish. Okay. All right, so this is qualities of a good MIS solution. So the objectives here are understand the role that MIS systems play, which you just sort of kind of did.
All right, I'm MIS.
Management information systems. It's the thing that does your costing and, okay. Understand the most common bottlenecks in your administrative process. Build a hypothesis of the value that you need and then do a fast start plan. Okay, so I know some of you are actually in this dilemma right now. Like, what do we do? Okay. So we're going to cover this by where do MIS systems fit in the workflow, which we sort of just did. Where are the gaps in your administrative processes? And then we'll workshop it. And then what do you consider in terms of implementation on this, since you're coming up with that as a gap? All right, so basically, leaders know that they can't cut their way to prosperity. I mean, you cannot streamline enough to make $1 gazillion, okay? So when this is an NAPL study, so they were like, what do you need to do to increase or excel, increase your business in the next 2 or 3 years? So if you look at this, you can see be as lean as possible, so that's a workflow consideration. Control costs across your organization, that's a workflow consideration. Market more efficiently, that's a sales issue. Increase our value to clients by understanding their business better and offering the services that they most value, marketing. Upgrade our capabilities by investing in key areas, that's a management consideration, and become faster and more efficient by streamlining our workflow, reducing steps, and reducing touches. That's a workflow. So 3 of the top things are workflow related. And we could argue, since other than you, everybody else does big chunks of the process, that if you fixed the workflow issues, or at least some of them, you'd have the time to do the sales and marketing conceivably, or the management.
Right.
Okay? All right. Oh, sorry. Okay, so basically people say, what's workflow? It's different stuff, you know, so we just went through that. It's pre-press workflow, it's MIS functions, it's web to print, it's process improvements. Fixing the workflow is multiple definitions. Okay, so when we talked about administration earlier, we looked at these were the key elements going on in the administration component: estimating, quoting, creating the order, creating a job ticket, pulling your inventory, managing your inventory, issuing POs to go buy outside inventory, scheduling, job tracking, shipping, receiving, AR, and AP. So those are typically the functions of the MIS. Okay? Now your MIS is not, what you have now is you're going completely another place for accounting. Right? Your Peachtree?
Not entirely.
Okay.
Because at the end, out of all of our MIS systems come our sales reporting by category, our sales tax numbers, you know, all kinds of things like that then have to turn around and get manually, the sales side of the P&L has to get manually put in there.
Is it, when you say manually, like, you don't mean keystroking?
I'm saying making journal entries to get the sales into a general ledger. Obviously, we write checks every day, and that immediately, I mean, that's in our accounting software. Either, I mean, I use Peachtree half for a million years, but other people have QuickBooks or whatever it is they have. But there's nothing about any of my customers in there, nothing about what they buy. I just have a category for brokered sales of X amount of dollars and all these expenses that are of checks and ACH and whatever else I pay for. Yeah, no.
We have one customer in QuickBooks,
Which is you.
accounts receivable. And
Okay.
at the end of every month, I take what's in Trent Smith and I post it like it's one sale
Okay.
by category.
So,
Here's how much printing we did, here's how many color copies, here's this.
You export the data over, you can export the data over into QuickBooks.
Yeah, that's
You
what we
can-
do.
Yes,
I
you
just
can.
do a
Yeah, I
journal.
know, but it takes,
I have one journal entry.
You can do all the journal entries and all the sales for all the different categories that you can export.
Okay, but what you couldn't do, for instance, was, from your MIS, like I can't see who's our best payers, right? Because that's over in QuickBooks. Can you see that?
Because when they
Yep, I
pay,
am.
you have to apply the payment to their
Oh, that's the other thing, you go
invoices.
back.
Oh, back to Prince Smith, okay.
Yeah, all-
I hope y'all counted this in your workflow.
That's why, when you
'Cause-
said, what do you do? And that's why I said accounting.
That's what you do all day.
P&Ls and-
Your accountant is not gonna, your accountant that you're working with is gonna be in your, what is it,
Peachtree.
Peachtree.
Peachtree or QuickBooks or something
When,
like that.
yeah,
When you turn your financials over to them, we do that quarterly, we work with them. They're not gonna take a Prince Smith or somebody else. If you give them something like that, then you're gonna pay them to enter all that data.
into QuickBooks. Okay.
But like I said, you can take the data from QuickBooks, from Princeton, for example, and I'm sure you can do it from the other software, and dump the journal entries and the GL accounts over to QuickBooks or Peachtree, or whatever programs that are out there.
Well,
And the whole list.
We make 12 entries.
And you can do it either daily or monthly or weekly, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
It's still extra step.
It's still a process.
Yes,
You
correct.
still have to do
Still a
it.
process.
Now, you can't enter accounts payable in there. You have to do that manually. Any accounts
We
payable
make one
through
deposit.
Princeton. Through Princeton.
We match up, we individually, we.
Are you guys all right in the back?
Prince Smith, but in QuickBooks, we just make one deposit against that one customer. Yep.
Now, maybe Adam will be going over this tomorrow. You can export from MOD into QuickBooks, right?
My order desk has a button inside that you can activate that says create an invoice in QuickBooks. And it'll auto-create the invoice.
You
But
say they're
wait,
going
time
to?
out. Why,
We do.
why in the world would you muddy the water of your financial statements from your MIS system? I mean, your financial statements are the ones that's accruing your depreciation and handling hard assets. And why on earth would you?
Well,
You're not-
QuickBooks
can't
has
imagine
an
it.
You're not doing that. All you're doing, all he's saying, all you're doing is just feeding the information into the email. You're trying-
Right, but I make one journal entry, it takes me 5 minutes. I guess that's what I'm saying, and I do it monthly.
Right, I do too.
So, I guess, I don't
It's a-
understand this conversation at all.
Well, I think,
Why would
Okay.
I make something that doesn't need to be automated, is what I'm saying? I worry about doing that. Well,
We brought it up.
yeah,
Well, here's,
okay.
never mind,
if
I'm
you weren't
sorry.
there, how would it be done?
Oh,
That's
so
all.
yeah, somebody would have to do it, that's true.
Yeah.
So, what I guess Gary's saying is that at the end of the day, somebody could push a button, and those entries would be popped over to QuickBooks on a daily basis.
QuickBooks allows you to do invoices out of
And then at any time during the month, you can look to see where your sales are comparing to all those checks you've been entering and all that.
That's the problem with the way that you are doing it, is that there's data that gets lost in the translation, and I'm not getting a day-to-day snapshot of my business that I need to, because we're not making the journal entry until the last day of the month. So when I say, oh my God, how are we doing on the 15th, I really don't know. And so then I can't say to my salespeople, hey, hustle, we're not up to speed on our numbers, so what do you lose because you don't know that? And then the month goes by and it's not good. So it's just, when you have it in two places, you don't necessarily put it back together.
All wish that we had one system.
Yeah,
And it doesn't exist.
yeah, I know. Well, we'll see. I mean, down the road, I think they're, the thing is, they don't exist, but they could feed each other. They could go back and forth. And so that you did have that vision. You're right, different software companies have expertise in different areas, but if they were integrated, I could use the best of both worlds and not have all these manual steps in between, okay? So basically your expectation on workflow is increasing the efficiency is an ongoing process. You can't fix it all at once. You need to have that vision so you can implement step by step, and success in developing the solutions for multiple bottlenecks that can ultimately lead to, and we study studied this, 2 to 3 hours a day. And I've got the numbers on by problem, what it can give you back. And so Howie Fenton, who works for InfoTrends, his rule is assume that you will achieve 1 hour of additional productivity per day every time you fix one of these problems. Okay? Now remember, your hours are 8 times how many people work there. You know, so I have 3 people, so that's 24 hours per day of man hours, right? Okay. All right, so he studied, he's gone on site and he's done this analysis. So basically it was a franchise printer and then a small commercial printer, and he looked at, you know, 2 different systems, what their bottlenecks were, different sizes, service growth, so it was a good kind of cross-section, and basically found out that you all pretty much have the same varieties of problems. Okay, so overcoming the most common problems after they were fixed usually increase of productivity, 12% increase in productivity. It's the most common problems, which are like the pre-press bottleneck, the job ticketing bottleneck, the invoicing bottleneck. Fix that, you're going to get 12% back. Okay, and overcoming the most common problems will increase profitability by 2 to 3%. Okay, so now you could begin to say, well, if I try to automate this, I'm going to get 2 to 3% back in profit. Is it worth it? Okay. All right, so typical gaps, software gaps, no pre-press automation or CRM system. That's where this customer calls in, hey, I want more of that, and I go to the computer and it doesn't tell me what more of that is. So I need to go find the job jacket, open it up, look at what's in there, see what we estimated last time, get it re-estimated, like all the steps occur. Integration steps are usually struggles with MIS, like you're saying. My costing system doesn't, I have a separate accounting system. And also it's unintuitive, typically no floor tracking. Okay? Floor tracking is a huge problem because 20, 25, 50 jobs going through there a day. If 10 of those customers call, you've got to get out of your seat, you've got to go to 3 or 4 separate spots and try to find out where that job is. If they were using an automated job tracking and scanning a barcode, done, 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 you could look at the system and say, it just moved from here to there.
Is there anybody in here using a scanning system?
Using what?
A barcode, so you're scanning at each different department as it moves through?
No, we use Tracker, but we don't use them.
Keystroke it in.
Every station's got a computer and they move it.
Okay, which is fine. And you can automate that even further with the barcode of some type, but that's good.
Yeah.
Okay? Because without that, then you don't know where things are. And then it's one thing at 20 jobs, but what if it's 50 jobs, and then it's not as easy. I mean, I've seen people stand there and go through stacks, stack it, pre-press not there. Go out to the press floor, or out to inventory management, stack, not there. Over to the press, stack, no there. Oh, here it is. It's sitting in bindery, and it's 4 o'clock and you wanted it today, and it's sitting in bindery. Okay? Ideally, if you had this all automated, you could say, what's going out today at 4 o'clock? What hasn't gone? We have 3 jobs left in the queue. What the heck is going on with them? Let's push them through. Like if that would be the panacea. Okay? Metric gaps are stuff like lack of operation benchmarks. Okay, so how many sheets should this thing run? So are we on or off on our productivity? No day-to-day metrics of performance. We're putting more jobs through here than we did yesterday. We added something as a fix and it's actually working. We can see it. Most companies can't track it. So they're like, yeah, I hope it's working. Okay, and they can't identify where these problems are, which we just sort of did manually. Okay, procedural gaps are process control. Salespeople, big hindrance here. So come in, I'm going to do these 5 jobs today in pre-press, and next thing you know, I don't want. Okay, and if you have a really well-run shop, it's like you can't do that because you're going to make me stop and make me start, and I'm not going to get these 5 done. And so that has to go back in queue. But, let's face it, most shops, it's, hey, do this now. It's like whatever. And then you go, what's left to do? And you're out of sync. Okay? And then stuff on like color theory and overcoming color issues. So that stuff that you're saying, hey, it comes off the press, it's a crapshoot. One day it looks like this. The next day it shouldn't be that way. It's not like that in a big shop. They know what's coming off that press. Because up front, in their pre-press side of things, they've got all this color management, and it doesn't come off the end broken, okay? And then, there's also some opportunity for benchmarking in that area. All right, so major bottlenecks in print production is, look at your maroon number. The biggest headache is estimating by talking to your peers. Second one, proofing and approval, largely manual. Job ticketing, okay? Finishing and bindery, and you can see on down. But different people, like the shop that I showed you earlier, had a huge issue in pre-flight and pre-press, okay? But you can kind of see. Now, just take a glance at those implant numbers. So they're really manual in finishing and bindery, inventory, job submission. They're worse at some things that you're already better at, okay? Okay, what initiatives has your print operation conducted to specifically improve workflow efficiency, upgrade existing software? Okay, we saw that earlier when we saw what they want to spend their money on. Purchase new software, replace old equipment, training, and workflow automation gaps. Leading print service providers are redirecting their staff and sales. Now, this is critical. Pay attention, okay? Over on the far left is people who aren't making money, and significantly not making money, okay? So look at 34% of their employees are production employees, 14% are design and creative, 10 are database programming, we'd put the mailing guy in there, okay? 17% are sales and marketing, 20% are administration. That's how their workforce splits up. Once you get up here, in the I'm growing by leaps and bounds, look what happens. I have less production people as a percentage. I have slightly more design creative services, more database services, 25% more people working sales and marketing. The money that they save here by automating is going into this. Okay, so I'm saying now I can finally get rid of this horrible employee that just moves paper around, and I can go hire another salesperson. Or I can even not hire a person, but have money now to outsource my marketing if I want to do that. Okay, so that's a big thing. The really successful companies are spending way more money on sales and marketing because they've automated their production. Does that make sense? Okay. So building the digital workflow, we kind of been through this, but there's your buckets again. So we're going to look at MIS. So here's all the things that your management information system is supposed to give you, okay? So this is what you're going outside for: general ledger, sales, inventory levels, receivables, payables, which is in your Peachtree right now. A good system would have that in there, so it's all in one place. And it would be able to output the reports the way your accountant wants to see them. Okay, estimating, quotation, it would deal with that. It would deal with order entry, inventory management, shop floor. It would account for shop floor data collection, whether it's keying it in on an iPad at the workstation or scanning. It would just take that information off the floor. And then you'd have your standardized reporting that you need to run the shop. Okay, make sense? All right, so people love and hate. They're in a love-hate relationship with their MIS. I hate it, but I have to have it kind of thing. So these are typical complaints that we hear. Too much manual stuff. It's homegrown. Anybody have a homegrown? Those are the worst. Too many touches, drowning in job tickets, doesn't integrate, so I'm moving manually, not enough automation, too much scheduling, too many inputs from multiple other places. So it's a big pain. Basically, this is your workflow if you had it right, okay? So you can ask yourself, like, when you're trying to isolate the problem, like, where did the original data come from? Okay, one of the things we see when people go to implement the MIS is the original standards that were in. What do you guys have, Printsmith? The original standards. So they say, oh, I need to revisit all those standards. So then they get in a broken loop about correcting that and end up not implementing. Because they're like, oh yeah, when I get time, I'm going to look at all of those, and it doesn't happen. You'd be much better off uploading the NAPL standards or something, getting it in there, and then working on it little by little. But a lot of people wait for this big panacea of time, which as you notice you're never going to get, to fix those standards. So we see that a lot. How often do you update the standards? Okay, that's that problem where it's all in somebody's head. Like, oh, I know we're better at this now. I haven't changed it in the system, but I know it in my head. So when I do this estimate, I can say it's going to take less time and give them a lower price so we win it. But that is actually not tracked anywhere. And when I print it out of the system, what's it going to look like? Like the job cost more than it actually did, right? So that's kind of the examples of stuff like that. So could you ask your systems today, Marilyn, what types of work is most profitable?
If it were properly set up, yes.
Okay, but it's not.
It's not.
Okay.
We just bought it in January because of a panic.
Okay. Everybody can look and see who their top sales customers are pretty easily, right? Can you tell which ones are the most profitable? Okay, what if the customer doing all the money is actually, you're doing all the sales, you're actually losing money on? That's happened before. Printsmith will if the right information
As long
is.
as you have the data and they're correct.
Exactly. Okay, which customers are doing less business with you? I work with printers all the time, and I always kind of start there. Okay, where were we last year? Where are we today? Who's not doing what? Let's figure out what went wrong. I have people that take 4 weeks to figure that out. And I'm like, okay, well, we just lost 1/12 of our time to fix the problem. Like, it literally takes them that much time. Okay, because it's half over here and half over there, and they just can't answer it. Okay? If the system isn't updated, who knows the answer? So, like, how many times are you like, somebody will know? Like, somebody knows something that you know to fix. Okay, but what if you're not there? Okay, and what happens if the person with the answers isn't there? So what happens then? All right, so all that workflow thing only gets worse if the magic person's not there. Okay? All right, so this kind of takes you from where if you do automate the MIS and you get better at it, and Printsmith did a pretty good job for our industry. I mean, it was a good solution. It's just not integrated with anything. So it's going to be an island of Printsmith forever. And they say Vision is, but it's really not. Okay, so ideally you want to move from, you know, what it is today to something that's completely automated would be the best scenario. Okay, laugh, laugh, laugh. Okay, so it's so hard to fix because everyone already has software that they are using, that they're married to. They have processes that they're using and they're married to. They don't have time to figure it out, which would go back into that, remember earlier? Like, do I have time for vision and mission? They don't know where to start. It's too broken. It's like, is it more important to fix the accounting or more important to fix order entry? That's why we did that exercise. Like, at least I could see, God, this takes a lot of hours. Maybe I want to go there first. Okay? They don't know how to do a cost-benefit analysis, which is why I told you that 2 to 3 hours of productivity conceivably and the percentage points on profitability. So somebody's going to come to you and say, hey, buy this for $30,000 and it's going to fix this, this, and this. You could actually calculate, okay, we're going to make our money back on this. Okay? No time to focus and verify standards. That is just a huge problem. Like, people get so hung up on that. And I would say just download NAPL and then fix it as you go. Get going. You know it should be integrated, but it's difficult to figure out what works with what on the integration, which is the part that Jay's working on right now. Is can we get you some options that integrate well together? Okay. All right, so in 2012, when NAPL asked this, people were extremely optimistic, okay? So they were gonna, get to 74% of their pre-press was automated in 2 years, 72% of their estimating, and you saw those numbers from before, like they didn't do that. Okay, so this is a common, the problem with this is it's a problem, it doesn't get any better, and everybody's kind of wallowing around chasing their tail. Okay, except for the big guys. The big guys are investing the money it takes to get it done. Okay? We saw this, here's where they were, so we didn't get anywhere near this if we're still only halfway on pockets. Okay? Here's workflow adoption, commercial versus corporate. And again, because I believe there's an opportunity with those 35 implants plus the 9,000 real printing implants, they are not doing this right. Like if you find one, you need to go meet with that COO and talk to him about outsourcing it and hook all those end users up with my order desk. They're going to get better service than they're getting today. Okay, so we talked about this, on islands are okay because they will give you some relief. Okay, so it's okay to fix these things one thing at a time, but your ultimate goal should be that. Okay, that's what you want, as close to it as you can get. Okay, so if you fix the little pieces, you want to get the pieces together at the end. Put the puzzle together. All right, so remember our guy with all the red was him, and he had the workflow that actually ended up with you guys. So here's what he ended up doing. So phase 1 was production automation. Purchase, install, and configure a production workflow system. It would automate file preparation, PDF creation, pre-flighting, editing, color, and the output. Okay, and then he would be able to create workflow plans with the eye for integration with his MIS. So he didn't fix his MIS. I think he actually has Printsmith. So he fixed that production workflow first. Then the second thing is the business automation side of things, the administration, and then he's going to purchase and install his MIS and start by building out the infrastructure for accurate estimating job costing, because remember, it's all in his head. And he's referring to spreadsheets. Customize all customer correspondence. He had a separate step. He was figuring it out in Printsmith and then typing in a PC a letter to the customer with the price. Okay, now there's a reason for that, because he didn't want that estimate looking thing, because he wanted to not be a printer-y looking thing, but he created another step. Ideally, you'd have a system that would allow you to have multiple displays of that quote. Okay, build a set of required reports, integrate with accounting, so that's phase 2. And then he didn't have a salesperson, or he now has one, but they're not selling web to print. So some people, like they have all those little orders coming in, web to print should be first. In his case, you're not selling it, why buy it and have it as a lazy asset? We're going to do that third. And that gives him time to get a salesperson, get them up to speed. Does that make sense? So ultimately, you want to, based on what we've been doing today, and you go back and you think through this, you want to have a plan that looks like this, because you can't do it all at once. And you could actually have 3, more buckets if you wanted to automate finishing or, something else. But that, you should end up with a phased approach, and you should estimate, we're going to do this in the first 60 days, we're going to add this in the next 4 months, whatever that is, so that you have that plan of where you're going and you don't just stop after the first round, right? Make sense? Okay. All right, so now use the same 1 to 10 scale that was on that other graph. 1 to 10, 10 being fully automated. The average was just around 5. Look at your departments again, and what do you think how is your automation? So based on what you guys are telling me, you're going to have not very much here, okay? So just go through and just rate these buckets. And then we'll get a break and some coffee and cookies and tofu. Ten's the best.
I can find somebody to build a burrito.
They really make tofu cookies? Ew.
It's disgusting.
I tried eating a vegan cupcake one day. It wasn't good. I won't do that again. It looked pretty though, but it tasted like crap. How's my back table doing, boys? Yeah? A lot of threes? Okay. We gotta start someplace. Because I assume you guys, any of you have kids yet? Yeah, you'd kind of like to send them to college maybe, or? Yeah.